A year and a half ago, I was walking down Route 1 in Maine. I went from Portland, Maine to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania on a cancer walk, and to raise money for the Cancer Research Institute in honor of my sister who passed away of cancer back in 1999. So that's just a little qualification, but I'm walking down Route 1, and I had this grand vision that, you know, I was 22 again, and I had this big backpack full of stuff, and I'm just trudging along, and I got around my second mile out of Portland, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so the backpack was way too heavy. I sat on the couch way too long, and I drank a lot of beer, you know how it goes. So I called my mom, and I said, I can't carry this load anymore, you know, it's too much. And I had these blisters on my feet by the second day. I'd only made it like 14 miles. And so my mom came to my rescue, and she got me this cart, kind of like the laundry carts you see in the city that have the really flimsy plastic wheels and stuff. And that worked for a little while until it broke. And then I bought a new cart, which was much heftier, and, you know, I had a backpack that I strapped onto the handle of the thing, and it had these big bicycle wheels on it, and so I was going for it, and it was a lot easier. And I had this big walking staff that somebody had given to me, and so as you can imagine, I'm about 6'4", and I'm walking with this cart behind me down Route 1, and with this walking staff and a beard and everything, and, you know, people drive by and they're like, you know, hey Gandalf, or, you know, Moses or whatever. And so anyhow, I didn't have a place to stay most of the time, and so I had my tent. Everything I had was in this cart. About 100 pounds worth of stuff. I thought I needed a laptop. So at my first night that I really didn't have a place to stay, and I saw these storm clouds moving in, I went to this church, and I saw this lady making this delicious food in this church kitchen. I asked her if I could camp in the backyard. She said, we're going to do better than that. So she invited me into this community dinner where the church fed about 75 downtrodden people. And so I was sitting with all of these amazing people having dinner, and it was a lot more than I expected. So this guy, Steven, was sitting next to me, and his favorite part of the whole thing was the salad. And he said, whoever doesn't eat their salad is going to get a spanking. And so I quickly ate my salad. Anyhow, he slid his salad over to me as well, and so I ate his salad too. And underneath his salad bowl was his last $2. And when you're doing something like this, it was very difficult for me to understand how to accept somebody's last $2. Fast forward a bit in the walk, it was somewhere in Rich, Connecticut, and the church theme really worked for me. I could sleep in the churchyard or whatever. So I called up this church, and it was obviously an opulent area, and these people put me up in this beautiful home, and they fed me these incredible meals. And the guy said, can you stick around until Sunday? This is the pastor. And I said, sure, why not? And so he's like, I just want to talk about your story in church, you know, if you don't mind. And I said, well, that seems harmless enough, you know. And so I'm sitting in the middle of this church. It's a 2-story church it's packed with about 300, 400 people, and they're all dressed very nicely and everything. And he's telling the story about, you know, there's a man walking across the country. He doesn't have a place to sleep. He doesn't know anybody. He has nothing, you know. And I'm like, I have stuff, you know. But it's a little extreme. He's holding my staff in the air, and he's saying, this man of God. And I'm like, I meditate, you know. I don't know. So he says, and the best part about this story is that this didn't happen 50 years ago. This, you know, isn't something you read about in the news. This man of God is sitting right here in this church. And I was like, wow, you know. And, you know, my face is pulsing red, and all I could think about as he announces me and I have to stand up is Stephen back in the church, where these people have everything in this church. Stephen had nothing. And I just remembered as these people are applauding me and high-fiving me, that Stephen had a lot more than they did. And it was an important lesson for me on that walk. Thank you.